All right, welcome everybody to the three-man wave. My name is Keith Shirts, and I'm a writer on VanquishTheFoe.com. I'm joined by two fellow writers at VanquishTheFoe.com. We'll send it out to DC, Steve Pierce at postgame. Cougars come away with the win.
That was quite the what do I even say about that? That was an experience. Holy cow.
Sorry, guys. I'm in a church clerk's office right now, obviously fulfilling my duty.
This is the most appropriate place you could be talking about BYU sports, right?
And on a mission.
If there's any place, this is the one to be in. So hopefully, all of our viewers know that I'm super righteous here.
So Jake, we have Jake as well. He's at BYU All Blue, and Cougars come away a 2-point victory over Jared Brownridge and the Santa Clara Broncos.
Are you sure that wasn't Michael Jordan that we saw out there? Because that first half was pretty ridiculous.
It was pretty amazing.
It was weird.
One of the things that I just thought the first half, everybody seemed to be shooting good. They were getting weird bounces off the backboard. They were having so many things that were happening for them right. Then they hit a ton of threes in the first half, and boy, I mean, it was just a nail biter the whole way. But let's talk about the big final play. Tyler Haws hits the big 15-footer, and I was so happy to see that happen for Tyler. He takes so much crap for big shots. And Brett Hine asked us on Twitter, get involved on Twitter, use hashtag 3MW. Woo! That rolls off the tongue. Hashtag 3MW. But he asked, on a scale of 1 to awesome, how great was that last Tyler Haws shot?
I'd say it's probably pretty much the most awesomest thing I've ever seen. Actually, it's kind of reminded me, if we're being honest, it reminded me, the whole closing sequence of that game reminded me of the game against St. Mary's 2 years ago with the Dell of a Dagger. Haws hit an absolutely unreal shot to essentially what looked like win that game with 2 seconds left just about. And it was kind of in a similar range. I think it was probably a little closer than the one he hit tonight. But then the difference is that St. Mary's didn't take a timeout, and they just threw it in, and Dellavedova hit that crazy 50-foot shot. Which Brandon Clark got really close. It was at least online. It came up short. But, as Brandon Clark was heaving up that 50-footer for the win, potentially, I was feeling like traumatic flashbacks to the Dell of a Dagger, which, I still have night sweats about that. So it was not pleasant.
Yeah, no, I was actually fortunate enough, so since I'm here at the church building, I was going off of church Wi-Fi, and so I was looking at my phone, watching it, but also seeing tweet updates come through, and so I saw a bunch of tweets come through that said BYU wins before that shot went off, and so I was like, okay, good, I can watch this half-court heave in peace and know that nothing bad is gonna happen. So that was nice. It was really fun. But that shot by Tyler Haws, I mean, it's kind of what we expect out of him. He's our go-to guy in the clutch, and it was I'm just glad that finally he has a game winner, as opposed to oh good, we go ahead and then Matthew Dellavedova takes away from him. So I'm glad that he has this moment to be clutch, and to there's all these ridiculous people on Twitter and on Cougar Board and just in the internet at large who kind of say, oh, Tyler Haws, you can score a lot of points against bad teams, but he never comes up in the clutch. Well, hi, haters. How you doing?
He finally got one. I was so happy for him, and I thought, I was in Maui, and I was right in line with him when he missed the shot against Purdue. I was really close when he missed a shot against San Diego State. He's had a lot of opportunities this year to kind of make the hero shot, and so I was really happy for him, super happy for him. He's the man. 30 points tonight for Tyler Haws. He moved his way up to 26th all-time on the NCAA career scoring list tonight. Incidentally, he passed my guy Michael Brooks from LaSalle University tonight. And anyway, I just thought that one of the real key things for Tyler was to have kind of a huge moment in his career, and this will be something everyone remembers.
Yeah, I think that it actually comes at a pretty fortuitous time, right? Because it was just a couple days ago that there was an article on another blog, which may or may not have used to employ both myself and Mr. Welch, which will remain nameless, that had very directly called into question Tyler's performance in the clutch. And they ran, I guess, how they defined clutch was games that ended up being decided by 10 or fewer points. And within the last 5 minutes, which is a pretty expansive definition of clutch. That's generally not what like if you were to look at like NBA clutch stats, normally it's when the game is within 5 and within the last 2 minutes. But anyway, they ran those numbers and they show, there's this huge drop off. He's shooting like 19% in the last 5 minutes of games that are decided by fewer than 10 points. And they're like, oh, Tyler's not, he's not really a clutch player. And I think it's not just, that article. I think there is, as Jake said, this kind of pervasive sentiment in some places of the BYU fan base that, oh, Tyler Haws is a nice player, scored a lot of points, but doesn't get it done when it matters. I think tonight kind of shows us that he can get it done. He's gotten it done before. It was foiled by perhaps the most ridiculous shot I've ever seen by Matthew Dellavedova 2 years ago. He's hit big shots other points in his career. But this one, because of the significance, because it is in the postseason, because it keeps BYU's bubble chances strong, I think this one is maybe a little bit more memorable. It comes across as maybe one that sticks with us a little bit more. And plus, it was just a ridiculous shot. It was like, that's the type of thing that Tyler Haws does that we've become used to. And it's like, oh, Tyler Haws hit another incredible falling away, pull up on a dime, mid-range jumper. But that's a really hard shot. And so we need to recognize that as what it is, because he's an incredible player. And we're very, very fortunate to have been able to watch him for these last 3 years and then obviously his freshman year. But he is awesome, to use Brett's word.
One of the things go ahead, Jake.
No, I was just going to say, I love Tyler Haws so much that I'm willing to say the word awesome, because that's the worst way to describe it. And it's awesome is the cheesiest, most BYU way to describe it. But he's awesome. But I hate it, but I also love Tyler so much that I'm willing to be okay with it. I'm willing to swallow my pride and actually use that word.
What about the Wizard of Haws instead? Do you like that better, Jake? Can we get some more puns?
I think we need to come up with a list of Haws-related puns. And
you mean like a low Haws, which I carried a sign to. In Maui, I took a sign that said "Aloha."
I was there. I saw it. It was. I
made USA Today, baby.
You did. There's a picture. We could maybe change up the header picture of this article on Vanquish the Foe, and we could put that picture of you holding the sign.
There's no need, but it was fun. It was fun. One of the things I wanted to bring up, Haws, a lot of people, underestimate him. First of all, in response to that he's not clutch, everybody sucks in the last 5 minutes of close games for BYU over the last 2 years. If you look at the numbers, nobody's done well for them, basically since Dave Rice left. So if you look at that, from that moment on, BYU in close games where it gets more about half court and stuff, I wrote about this once, but basically everyone's terrible down the stretch of a game when it's close for BYU. I don't know. That's a coaching thing, and hopefully we don't have to face too many more close games. But to my second point about Haws became the 7th player in BYU history to make 3 first-team all-conference selections in his career, and just the 5th since the Marriott Center was constructed. So, he's the real deal, and I can't believe we have to have this conversation when he scored 2,600 points in his career.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the thing that's fascinating about it is that we're even more I guess to use the term, blessed. Because we also get to see another potentially historic player like Kyle Collinsworth on the same team. And Kyle, that first half was a little bit rough for BYU, and I think a lot of it is, yes, Jared Brownridge was transfigured into a being like unto Michael Jordan for 20 minutes. But the other half is that equation is that Kyle sat for 10 minutes with foul trouble.
And he started really great.
Yeah, he came out like gangbusters. He had 9 points in the first like 5 minutes. He was boarding, he was distributing, he was scoring, he was just dominating the game. And then he picked up that second foul and had to go to the bench. And when Kyle goes to the bench, that really changes everything for BYU. He is by far their most dynamic player just because he does so much and is a threat in so many different ways for, how he attacks the glass, how he can get to the rim, how he can set up other people, particularly Tyler and shooters like Sky and Chase. And so when that's missing, when that kind of engine of the offense is no longer there, things go badly. And I think you saw in the second half, Kyle comes back in, particularly in that run where that kind of put BYU up 8. And I know they didn't really hold on to that lead in the last couple minutes, but they kind of got themselves some separation. And I think Kyle being there, and even if he didn't directly impact the outcomes on those particular possessions that led to those scores, just his presence and the attention that he draws, I think is huge. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team with him and Tyler throughout the rest of this year, and even more fun to watch Kyle as the focal point of a team next year, which will be in a different world, but it'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about. I mean, the dynamic of Kyle Collinsworth and Tyler Haws and how they work with one another. But kind of talking about Tyler Haws on his own. I mean, I remember like listening and hearing about him when he was at Lone Peak and he was going to go to Stanford, he was going to go to BYU, and seeing him progress throughout his career and like being able to see this team in the way that it's progressed from a point in the season where I witnessed a loss at Pepperdine, and I was like, this team is done. I remember I was there in the stands and thinking to myself like, they don't come to play. They have no heart. And the senior leadership that I think that Tyler provides, I think is a huge thing. I don't think, people give a lot of credit to him because he's not one of these super big rah-rah guys like a Chase Fisher is. But I think his just mental fortitude and what he brings to the game night in and night out, and his ability to not only just score the ball, but he plays tough. He gets after it. And I think we've seen this year specifically the moments where guys would hit in his face. He is so much more fiery this year than he has in years past, and I love it. I love when Tyler Haws gets knocked down to the floor, he jumps back up and gets in someone's face. It gets me fired up just sitting here in this clerk's office thinking about it. So
that's shocking considering you're a football guy, Jake. I'm so shocked that you like physical confrontation in your basketball players.
Steve has personally seen me be physically confrontational while playing basketball. I would go from football season directly into basketball season. That'd be bad news. But anyway, we're getting away from the point here, being that I'm glad that Tyler Haws and his team, they progressed from that point, specifically with Tyler, from that point where I saw them at Pepperdine. Now they're able to come into the conference tournament. Obviously, it's a close game tonight, not exactly what we wanted. But it's just great to see that they're kind of hitting their stride and figuring out these roles at the right time.
Yeah, it's been great. And I think that a lot of the big time, like in these last 10 games or so, the push has come from kind of those ancillary, auxiliary role players. You've always had Tyler and you've always had Kyle, and you knew what you kind of got from them. And it kind of, whether or not BYU won, kind of fell to how guys like Anson Winder and Chase Fisher performed. And Anson has spent the last several weeks, I think he hasn't been himself recently, and he dealt with a lot of injuries. I think those are probably still hobbling him, and he's trying to play through some of that, which is valiant to be commended. But he just hasn't been as efficient as he was the first half of the season. But the BYU's still been able to win. They've been able to get on this hot streak because Skylar Halford has been unbelievable, and he wasn't quite as good tonight as he's been, the last couple weeks. But I mean, last week on the road trip to Portland and Gonzaga, the guy shot 75% from three and averaged like 15 points. He's been really, really good, and it's not just the offense, which is obviously really good. He's picked up some of Anson's production, but it's the defense, and he plays really hard all the time. He just never stops. It's a nonstop energy, he's fueled by methamphetamines or something. He's on some type of drug that is just like no other human can produce that naturally. I don't know how he gets that psyched up to just constantly chase people around. But he's been huge. I thought he was big tonight. He had those 2 back-to-back left-hand layups in the second half that really kind of gave BYU some separation, and those are the kind of shots that someone other than Kyle or Tyler has to make, because the defense is always going to key on Kyle or Tyler, particularly in the half court. And so when Tyler can step up, make big shots when BYU needs them, that gives them that third dimension that BYU really needs to be a really dangerous team.
Yep.
One of the things I think I have a theory about Skylar Halford. Basically, it's this: he's mortal, like every basketball player, but I think people like expected him to be great right away. But a lot of people think because he's a senior that he's got 4 years of experience at this level, and it's just his second. And I just feel like he's just hitting his stride with it because he's now gotten into the groove of what it's like to play at Division I level. Good theory, bad theory?
I think it's a good theory. No, I think it's good. I was certainly one who was critical of Skylar last season because he came out, he didn't really play a whole lot, and then we got to that San Diego game, which I was at that game, and that was his first game. They put him in the starting lineup. They benched Matt Carlino, which of course I have issues with for other reasons. But he played like gangbusters. He had 28 points. He was great. He hit everything. Everyone was like, oh, Skylar Halford is awesome. He's going to be, the next savior at shooting guard for BYU. And then it was all like downhill from there. It was just like rolling down the side of the mountain, and I think his confidence got worse and worse as the season went along. He didn't believe in his shot. He wasn't bringing very much positive to the table. And I was certainly critical of him, particularly up until the point where Dave finally benched him and went another direction with the starting lineup, and he got fewer and fewer minutes. But this season's kind of been the opposite. He started out a little slow, but still winning the ball pretty well, and he's just continually gained momentum and gained confidence as the season's gone along, to where I think he's playing, the best basketball he's ever played. And I think a lot of that is a lot of those struggles that he had last year that he isn't having this year was kind of due to his inexperience. I mean, he was a great player at Slick in his sophomore year, but playing at the junior college level is not the same as playing Division I college basketball. So it was not surprising that he hit a wall in his first year at Division I. That's what many freshmen do, and this was kind of his freshman year as a Division I player. As a senior now, he's got a year under his belt, and he's kind of figured out how to overcome that wall and to continually grow and get better, and it's been a big part of this team's success.
Question from the Twitter that is related to Mr. Skylar Halford. This one comes in from John Richards. If you want to send in questions, you can use hashtag 3, the number 3, MB. So this is from John Richards at J_Rich. Is Halford's top of the key spin move a set play for BYU?
What do you think, Jake?
I really hope that's in the Terry Nashif Book of Wondrous half-court set plays that he pulls off and like scribbles on the whiteboard, because man, it sure worked tonight to perfection. Good heavens! And it's interesting because I look at some of the set plays that BYU has coming out of timeouts, and there was one play tonight particularly with Tyler Hawes. He had a completely wide open look under the basket, and he had a really easy layup, coming out of on the baseline on the out of bounds. And so many times you'll see that. There are great times when we'll see amazing play calls from the out of bounds, from the sideline. And then there are other times when we get in our regular half-court sets where it's just like, what are we doing? Like, what in the world is going on? Like, if we're trying to, slow the ball down and, get a great shot. Obviously, it worked great towards the end of the game here, and there's sometimes you're kind of just like, what's going on here? What are the coaches drawing up, and what are we seeing as opposed to like what was supposed to happen versus what actually happened? And we saw some good in that tonight, and some not so good in that tonight as well.
Someone text. I want to jump to another Twitter question, also from John Richards. He asked if he says, am I justified in being really excited for a Kaufusi-Mika front court? Which I think the answer at this point is yes. Corbin Kaufusi, I've been tough on him this year and probably undeservedly so. He struggled early in the year. And I think that's fair. He hadn't played basketball at least in 2 years, wasn't particularly a great basketball player in high school, although he did play. So it was understandable that it would take him some time to kind of figure out how to play Division I basketball. It's really hard to be a good post on the Division I level. That's why there's not very many good posts. It's a guard's game for the most part. And he really struggled early on with particularly the defensive end of the floor and figuring out how to guard guys man up on the block. He obviously had great physical tools and was a great physical specimen and could block shots and he had good timing and all the natural skills were there. But he just didn't have the knowledge and the little things that make you successful. And that's why he picked up a lot of fouls. He got kind of abused on the block. But his progress from probably about December until right now has been amazing. And he is playing incredible basketball right now, and you kind of get to every once in a while you kind of get this glimpse of just how good he can be. He's got all of the physical tools, like I said. He's athletic, he's long, he does have really great natural timing on defense. It's just a matter of him continuing to get reps, continuing to improve. And you saw he was huge against Gonzaga. I think he was huge again tonight. And I think he's going to need to be really big again on Monday against Portland with their bigs like Thomas Vandermars, who's a very, very skilled player. So I think Corbin's a big-time key, and he's another reason why BYU has been able to kind of get on this hot streak because of his play.
Okay. I'm not sure that they're a good fit together.
You don't think so?
I think they do a lot of the same sort of stuff. Obviously, Mika is a better scorer, but I don't know. I'm not sure that in terms of like the way that you're going to space the floor and all that stuff. It'll be interesting. That'll be a project for Dave Rose. I'm not sure that they mesh in a way that, maybe it would make more sense to have Dastrup out on the floor with one of them instead.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. I don't mean to be a buzzkill. I'm just saying, I'm not sure that they're going to – I'm interested in seeing it. I'll say that. But I don't know if they're going to be –
Well, I don't think it's so much the thing of them playing on the floor together. If they can find a way for that to happen, great. But if it's Kaufusi coming off the bench and giving 15 to 20 solid minutes of just former football player madness, then let's do that. Let's make it happen. I think I think just like the idea of from the very beginning of this season of saying oh man, Isaac Nielsen and Ryan Andrus and Corbin Kaufusi, those are our big guys. To a point where it's okay, Eric Mika is going to be our starting center, and then Bronson Kaufusi or Corbin Kaufusi is going to back him up. By all means, let's sign me up for that.
Yeah, it's I have similar concerns about fit and spacing as you do, Keith. And I do think that for the style that Rose plays, we don't really play a style that lends itself to a two towers type of lineup like that would be with kind of two back to the basket type scorers. So unless Eric Mika really develops like a 15-foot jump shot, I don't know how the spacing works with Corbin and Eric both on the floor at the same time. But Peyton Dastrup seems like more of kind of the natural fit as a 4 in Rose's offense. Can step out, hit the jumper out to the three-point line, but still provide really good rebounding. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But I definitely don't think it's a bad thing to have two incredibly skilled bigs like Corbin and like Eric slated to be in Provo for the next 3 to 4 years. It'll be interesting to see how Rose uses them, but it's kind of an embarrassment of riches if Corbin continues to develop at the rate he's done so far.
That's funny that you said embarrassment of riches and BYU post players in the same thought.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it?
Oh, it's a delight. But there's one thing I just want to say before we jump on to the next Twitter question, that being there was one play tonight that I saw that just made me smile immensely, and that was when Corbin Kaufusi, he blocked a shot at one end. It was the block shot where he jumped up and then on his way down blocked the shot, didn't foul the guy, handed the ball off to Tyler Haws, ran down the floor, and then Tyler Haws handed it. He got down the floor quick enough to be able to get the ball back and go up for a shot. He missed the shot, but he got fouled and made his free throws, which is amazing. Where we've seen this before with him, where he's made a play on one end and hustles back to the other to make another play on the offensive end. So it's great that we see some guy like this making the transition, seeing the hustle like that, be able to run this type of pace that Dave Rose wants. And it seems like he's just, like Steve said, he's progressing immensely, and that he fits now. And that's the thing that I noticed was like he fits into this offense where he's making these transition plays.
Yeah, I think the last thing, I just, one other thought on Corbin Kafusi, they always seem to try at least once, maybe twice a game, the baseline inbounds pass, where they try to set up the straight dunk, the alley-oop to Corbin Kafusi. It hasn't worked all year, but they keep trying it.
It's going to work one day.
But it did turn into that assist with the reverse jam for Collinsworth, so that was pretty good. So how about one thing I wanted to ask about is, a lot of people slamming are disturbed about how this game went tonight. But my thing is that warranted? I know that we rolled against Santa Clara, but something weird happens when we play in conference tournaments. And a lot of really good teams have struggled with a lot of really bad teams in first rounds, especially former BYU teams. Think about in the 2010 tournament, Jimmer as a junior, they won by like 4 against TCU. It was like 95-91 or something like this. So, are you disturbed that it was this close? And what are some of your thoughts about kind of the overall performance and being close to such a lowly team like Santa Clara, lowly in quotes?
Yeah, I think that actually this goes to a question that Brett Hine posted on Twitter. He said, "Is tonight's game proof that it's really hard to beat any team three out of 3 times in one season?" And I think that's really the dynamic that we're getting at. These teams know each other incredibly well at this point. And yes, BYU kind of put the beat down on Santa Clara in both of their regular season games that they'd played to this point. But you play a team enough times over the course of the season, and you just get familiar with their sets, you get familiar with what they do, it becomes there's a little more parity. I think that's part of it. I think it is really hard to beat a team 3 of 3 times in a season. I think you're going to see the same thing with Portland on Monday. A lot of BYU fans are like, oh, yeah, great, we don't have to play St. Mary's again. Portland is playing well, and they're a tough team, and they have good talent. So it's going to be a dogfight. I think the other half of it is, this is from a kind of a just purely emotional perspective, this is it, especially for these smaller teams that or these lesser teams that have a lesser records. Like if they don't win, like their seasons may be over. Maybe they get invited to one of the like pay your own way tiny tournaments. But for a lot of these teams, the dream lives on only if they win, and people are going to graduate and they're going to have to go get real jobs and they're going to have to go do whatever. So they're literally fighting not literally for their lives, but figuratively for their lives. And so you're going to take people's best shots. And BYU doesn't exactly have that dynamic in play. They are kind of they're fighting for their bubble spot, but they're in a lot better position than they were 2 weeks ago. So maybe the urgency isn't quite there as much, although it obviously should be. But when you're fighting to prolong your season for even one more day, you're going to give the other team the best shot, particularly if they already beat you twice. You have that chip on your shoulder. So I don't take any. I don't think it's a problem. I think if you win, that's the most important thing. And if they can get into the NCAA tournament and they play a team that they haven't already played twice this year, maybe some of the wrinkles and things that maybe don't work as often or as well against WCC teams anymore, maybe those come back in the picture and we see some more effective play. But I was just glad to get the win. That's always my first opinion.
Yeah, wins are fantastic. I enjoy them very much. They're very fun. And another game, Jimmer's senior year, so like the team that people remember being like the greatest team of all time ever, and it was like the perfect team and everyone loved them. That team beat TCU, and let's just remember, TCU is just as bad as basketball as they are good at football. They are so bad at basketball. I think BYU had beat them earlier, Jimmer's senior year, by 30 points. They lost to them by 6. Jimmer's senior year, they beat TCU by 6 points in the conference quarterfinals. So anything can happen. It's just a matter of getting it done and making sure that okay, you just overcome these games where it's tough and someone's gonna have a crazy shooting night. And it seems like there's those nights for BYU where some guy's going to go off. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in these conference tournaments. Just, survive and advance. That's all we got to do. And there's a question from Twitter from Brandon Muirhead. He said, what do you think about the bracketologist saying that BYU has to get to the finals of the NCAA of the conference tournament in order to get the NCAA tournament? And I think we've kind of briefly touched on this here, where it would very much benefit their case to do so. And with a lot of these other kind of bubble teams, either ones, we saw teams like, Texas and other teams winning the games that they need to in order to advance. BYU just needs to do everything that they can. And as far as I'm concerned, if they do lose this next game, I'm not very confident that they will get in. Just because it would be losing to a Portland team. I don't know where the RPI rankings are and everything like that, but it's just advantageous for us to say, all right, let's just get as far as we can. And so I'm not too worried and too concerned about how everything lays out, how it all plays out. I'm just going to say, all right, this next game, let's win it, and that will make me happy.
Yeah, just win, baby. I think that was Al Davis's line. I think that's incredibly applicable here. I think we get really caught up in whose RPI is up today and down today, and who does Lunardi have in today, and Palm has out today, and with a lot of basketball left to be played. I mean, most conferences haven't even finished their conference season yet, and they're not even into their conference tournament. I mean, the smaller conferences obviously have started, and some finished today, like the Ohio Valley. But there's a whole lot left to be decided, and the bubble is a very fluid thing. And BYU's candidacy doesn't just depend on BYU; it depends on about 12 other teams, and whether or not they win or lose in their conference tournaments, and who they lose to. So it's kind of, I think, pointless to try and speculate and project at this point. I mean, obviously, Joe Lunardi gets paid a lot of money to do that, so he should do that and make his money. I don't begrudge him that. But I think, you just have to keep winning. And if BYU keeps winning, obviously they never lose, then they're obviously going to get in with an automatic bid. If they get to the final and lose to Gonzaga and make it a respectable game and don't get blown out, I think I'd feel really comfortable going into Selection Sunday, depending on how other things played out. Now, it's possible that Northern Iowa could lose tomorrow in the Missouri Valley final to Southern Illinois, who's trying to steal a bid. Northern Iowa's getting in regardless. Wichita State's getting in from that conference regardless. If Southern Illinois wins that automatic bid, that's one less at-large bid that's out there for the taking for a team like BYU. So those kind of things can and will still happen. So it's such a fluid situation, and we don't know what's going to happen with those type of things. That's hard to project right now. But if you just keep winning and you win games that you should win, like beating Portland, everything else should hopefully take care of itself.
West Coast Conference is a 2-bid league, in my opinion. It's a good league. BYU is the second best team in this league. If they lose to Portland, they're still in. That's it. That's my opinion. I know that a lot of people may think that's nuts or whatever, but they got a huge win. They've got 2 marquee players, and they passed the eye test. They're going to get in. I think they're in. So I don't want to find out if my theory's right. I'd rather beat Portland. But let's talk a little bit about Portland. Let's talk. Bobby Sharp is the guy that I always think about. Obviously, Tyler Haws, 47 points. They lost that, of course, epic game from a couple years ago. Or was it 49? Anyway, I don't know.
48, I think.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, anyway, the point is Bobby Sharp got hot. Thomas Vandermars is a problem, and Alex Wintering. And we think they're well coached. I believe we're all in agreement on that. They're a well coached team. This is a problem. This is a problem for the Cougars, and something to keep in mind. BYU in second rounds all time in the conference tournament is 9-9. Dave Rose is 4-3. So, and in the West Coast Conference tournament, they're 1-1, with their lone win being last year, which was a 79-77 overtime win against San Francisco, which, if you'll recall, featured the worst last play in the history of BYU. But anyway, so listen, it's tough sledding to get a win in that second round game. I have a little bit of trepidation thinking about this game, considering some of those assets that they have on their side. They have 3-point shooters. They have guys that play underneath the hoop. What are going to be some of the most important things that BYU is going to have to do to get by the Pilots?
I think you're right, Keith, in that Portland is kind of scary. They're obviously not St. Mary's in that we didn't lose to them in the regular season. We beat them twice, but as we just discussed, beating a good team 3 times is really hard to do over the course of a year. So there's a lot of familiarity, obviously, with these teams, like there's with all WCC teams. But they do have some really good individual players and a good coach. Thomas Vandermars is a load down low, and he's going to challenge Ryan Andrus and Corbin Kafusi and Josh Sharp. He's going to give them everything they can handle because he's very skilled. He can step out and stretch the floor, and that creates a problem because our big guys aren't particularly mobile all the time, and they struggle out on the perimeter. They have Bobby Sharp, who has had after torching BYU last year, has had a really tough year this year, hasn't shot the ball well, has really struggled in conference play. And he's, I guess, going to go down in history as one of the guys who just, like, out of the blue decides to torch BYU on one game because we should build a building on campus for them now because there's a lot of them. Yes, yes, the League of Bobby. But the player who I fear the most is Alec Wintering. Alec Wintering is a really, really great player. He's diminutive. He's not very tall, but he's exceptionally quick, and he's a really good shooter. And as we saw with Brandon Clark today, Brandon Clark got loose quite a bit after BYU clamped down on Jared Brownridge in the second half. But that allowed Brandon Clark to get loose, and we just didn't have anyone who could stay in front of him. And he got into the paint repeatedly, basically whenever he wanted. That's the type of player that Alec Wintering is. He's really quick. He can get around guys, and I think he's a much better shooter than a guy like Brandon Clark is. So I'm a little afraid of, who we have that's going to guard him. Are we going to just go zone and hope that he doesn't make shots? Or are we going to hope that Bobby Sharp, the ghost of Bobby Sharp, doesn't heat up from outside? It'll be interesting to see how Dave decides to play. I think this is certainly a winnable game, a game they should win, a game that I think that they need to win to feel super comfortable. I think they can get in without a victory over Portland. But in order to feel really comfortable, I think they need to win the game. It's just going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it's gonna be a real close one, and I mean, just like any of these conference tournament games. And I think this Alec Wintering kid, he's the one who will beat us one-on-one if we're playing man-to-man defense. He's so quick enough. There's not gonna have anyone who's gonna be able to guard him. And he's that super annoying guy who always finds that spot in the zone to just kill us. I mean, it seems like multiple times tonight they were hitting those corner and just like three-quarter length threes, because they were just like hitting those right spots in the zones. And he's that kind of guy that has that quickness to get out there, stretch the zone, and hit those shots. So he's gonna. I see lots of just like corner threes. I'm sure gonna have a nightmare about corner threes in the next few nights. So hopefully there's something that BYU does. I mean, they haven't done anything in the past 4 years to kind of solve those. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something happen in the next few days. But let me throw some stats out here for you, Keith. You threw some great stats out there about games happening in the semifinal round. In games that I have attended, BYU is 0-1. I will not be in attendance this next game, so that's a huge thing. Also, this season, I've attended 5 BYU basketball games, 4 of which they have lost. I will not be in attendance this game either, so, I mean, odds are pretty good. I'm not going to be there. BYU is going to win, so...
Similarly, in games that I have attended, I've been in attendance at 4. BYU is 1-3. I was in Maui with Keith, where they only beat Chaminade, and they lost in overtime twice. And then I was at San Diego with Jake when they crapped the bed. So I will not be in Las Vegas either. So between me and Jake both keeping our bad juju away from the Cougars, I feel a little bit more confident now than I did 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. I might even stay here. I might even come back to this clerk's office and watch the game from here again, just because we won tonight. Might as well keep it going.
You're just getting a jump on tomorrow.
Exactly. More conference tomorrow, man. Got a lot of stuff going on.
Hey, one other thing. Chase Fisher hit his 91st three-pointer tonight, which gave me a pause for a minute. Maybe I didn't appreciate what happened against Chaminade when he hit 10 threes. I mean, it was crazy when it happened, but that's, he hit a 9th of his threes, or a 10th of them in one half. And anyway, so congratulations to him. He's hitting a lot of threes. He's been important this year. he'll be important to beating Portland as well. I want to bring up one thing with Brandon Clark. You know, when he had the bandage on his face, it brought in Vegas. It brought back memories that I haven't thought of for a while. Happy memories of chin strap Jimmer.
I thought you were gonna say Nelly.
Yeah, I immediately thought Nelly too. I was gonna try and drop in some hot and her. It was her, right? With the 2 R's. That was how it worked. The 2
That's
R's.
right.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Nelly song? Let's go around. My favorite one, just because it's a stupid song, is the one that he did with Tim McGraw.
Oh yeah, over and over again.
Yeah, wow.
Which is ridiculous because someone else, I think Ludacris, is doing a song with Jason Aldean. So apparently there's a market for country music singers and hip hop artists to get together to make music because that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's a tough call because there was some great Nelly songs. We're talking, this is peak early 2000s. I can get down with Ride With Me. I can get down with EI, but I think if I had to pick a favorite one, it would have to be the original Nelly single that blew up, Country Grammar. That's what I'm going with. And I stick with
it seems like you were having quite the dilemma.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay, so myself, I was born in the Show Me State. I am a true Missourian, and I lived in St. Louis for quite some time, so I very much consider myself a Nelly aficionado. And I would say it's probably EI, actually. I love that jam. It just gets the people going. Nobody knows what it means to be provocative, and it's just the greatest thing on planet Earth. So Steve goes with Steve going with Country Grammar. I would have to go with EI.
Andale, mommy. EI. Uh-oh.
I was nervous you were going to say Midwest Swang, but I was going to correct you. Say that's the St. Lunatics.
That's the St. Lunatics. No. I'm not gonna pick up a St. Lunatics jam. Or Air Force Ones. I guess that was Nelly, but yeah. Murphy Lee does his own thing. Nelly, his own identity.
This has really gone to a great place, guys. This reminds me it's 3:40 in the morning where I am, so that explains everything.
Okay, I wanted to play a quick game. I'll call it the Ice the PAT game. This is the moment where you remember the worst part of the game tonight. So I'll get us started. This is Isaac Nielsen's two missed free throws in a row. That is my Ice the PAT moment of the night. Anybody else want to chime in? Play the game?
Jake, you go first. I have to give this some serious thought.
I think it's got to be the very tremendous Skylar Halford spin move into a turnover, which led to the tie. I think everyone's like, oh yeah, that's that guy, that Skylar Halford guy that played for BYU the second half of last season. I remember him. He was terrible. He's back, and I hate it.
I'm gonna go with a multi-moment approach, and that's pretty much any time Frank Bartley gets the ball with any type of space in front of him, because he's just going to put his head down and run directly at the rim, which I'm not necessarily opposed to if there's not 3 guys standing right in front of you. And he got bailed out, I think, once, and they didn't call a charge, but he did get nailed on that charge on the right-hand side in the second half where he just went straight into the guy, and it was a critical moment. He should have just pulled it out, and they should have run some offense and got a good shot, but nope. Frank gets the ball and he's feeling confident. He's playing better. He's feeling confident, which I guess I want him to feel confident and play well. But it's a little bit of irrational confidence. There's also the time when Frank got blocked by the bottom of the rim. I think that might have happened twice today, actually. Those were honorable mentions for the worst.
And despite that, I thought he had a pretty good night.
Yeah, no, I think he did a good job, particularly on Brownridge in the second half. I think he played really good defense, and I think he is playing better. I mean, obviously he's getting minutes now. His confidence is up, and I think that's reflecting in his play. I think he's playing well. Just don't try and bowl over people anymore, Frank, please, particularly in crucial moments.
There's one thing that I would like to see, and I'm hoping, I don't know if you guys saw this last season. I mean, I think every sports fan did. Antonio Brown of the Pittsburgh Steelers on a kickoff return basically planted his foot inside the kicker's face.
Against the Browns, it
basically
was
tried to hurdle him and just basically just cleated him in the face and proceeded to run over him. if Frank Bartley can do that to Bobby Sharp tomorrow or the next game, I think we're all happy with that, right?
Everyone's happy when Bobby Sharp gets run over. There's no human being on earth that causes that.
Well, Frank Bartley, he can't help running like a maniac to the hoop. I know for a fact that the third, his father, is a big Ultimate Warrior fan. And, if you'll remember, he just used to run like a madman to the ring. And I just think that, and maybe Frank Bartley, he had the Ultimate Warriors theme. It's just always in his head, just always going, and he's taking it there. But before we go too far down that road, we actually have a question that's right in my wheelhouse. As a guy who likes a little pro wrestling here and there. This is from Ben Wagner on the Twitter. He asks, if the WCC officials were professional wrestling heel, which essentially they are at this point, what would be their entrance music?
I think this is obvious, right? I think that there's really only one appropriate song for the WCC officials in all of their glory, and it is Bad to the Bone, right? Like that's the only way. Like they're bad to the bone. There's no getting around it. It's the best way to describe them. Although I'm open to alternate suggestions, but I think Bad to the Bone should take it.
I think anything by Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles would also do it. Just saying.
Oh gosh, that's terrible. And now we've offended the disability community. Jake, come on.
I'm not beating
apologize, but
I'm not beating them. How about let's say them playing Bad to the Bone. So there you go. So
there you go.
We'll get Stevie Wonder to play Bad to the Bone, and that will be the West Coast Conference officials' theme song as they cut heel promos left and right across the WCC. By the way, they're not just bad for BYU; they're bad for everybody. I just want to bring that up. If you watch any WCC game outside of just BYU, they're bad for everybody.
Yeah, it's like, people always say, particularly in football, like hashtag Pac-12 refs. Pac-12 refs the worst, and you see that in basketball too. Like, Pac-12 refs. The WCC refs are like the Pac-12 like leftovers. Like they're the discard pile from the Pac-12. That's essentially who they are.
Jace.
And they're actually the leftover football refs. That's what happens. Apparently, they're just like a referee, like leftover junkyard. We can like pick up some like recycled refs, and they're just kind of like, they're in the striped thing. We're not going to use you for baseball because you don't have the right color shirt on. So we're going to use you for basketball because that's basically the same thing. Just take off the hats.
How great would it be if a WCC ref showed up in like one of those NFL like ref shirts? Like just like with the far fewer stripes, right? They got like 3 stripes. That would be amazing. That would be the best thing ever.
Yeah, what if an official was good, they got more stripes?
Ooh.
And then you knew how good they were. It's like a zebra and how old they get, I think. Isn't that how zebras work? Maybe they don't. I'm going to be an idiot.
I'm not sure that that's true, Keith, but it's late.
It'd be awesome if that's how it worked for zebras, though.
That would be. It's like, let's bring this back to like the accurate like science class realm. Like it's like the trees. Like they get the more rings as they grow bigger and older. There we go. Saved it.
It's like the elephants with their tusks. The more tusks they have, the more infinite wisdom they have.
It's like horses and their teeth.
I can literally hear people like closing out of this window. I can hear it.
All right, well here I'll get us back on track. I looked up a couple things. This is the 32nd conference tournament that BYU's ever played in. They've only won 3 in the first 31 chances at conference tournament glory. And the 3 times that they won, they have won by 2 points, by 2 points, and by 4 points in the conference championship game, including Kevin Nixon with the big heave, and the other 2 games were won in overtime. So there's that. Anyway, it's fun to kind of look up some of that stuff. But in championship games, they've made it there 9 times. They've won 3 of those 9 trips. Dave Rose is 0-4 in championship games. I made a crazy prediction on CougarCast like 4 weeks ago that we were going to win the conference tournament. I have no. I had some reasons, but mostly it was just being a homer. But I mean, let's talk about it. If they get by Portland, they did just beat Gonzaga. Is there a chance, right, that this group can do it? And the other thing I want to bring up is with Tyler Haws, he basically needs, in sort of legacy terms, a trophy. He's like the only one of like the top 25 scorers in the history of the school that doesn't have a trophy to his name. And so anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about that. So prognosticate the rest of the tournament. Do they have a chance to win this thing?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't think it's crazy. Obviously, they've shown they can beat Gonzaga. If they get through Portland, I think the thing to really watch for, considering what transpired tonight, is how healthy is Kyle Wiltjer. He hasn't been great the last few weeks. He's been dealing with a couple different knocks, but he picked up a really weird hip injury today. He took kind of a weird-looking fall, did the splits, and his knee bent in, and he had to be taken out of the game, go to the locker room. He came back from the locker room, sat on the bench, put ice up his shorts on what looked like his hip. If Kyle Wiltjer is not ready to play and he is severely or even somewhat his mobilization, he's not mobile because of a hip injury, and let's be real, hip injuries are no joke. They really affect your lateral movement, which, as we know, is a really important thing to have in basketball. If he is limited in any way, Gonzaga becomes even more beatable. I don't think they're playing their best basketball right now. As we saw tonight, they really struggled with San Francisco until they kind of got hot in the second half. So I think they're beatable. BYU did it a week ago. They can do it again. I think it's easier. The path's easier if Kyle Wiltjer is hurt. So if I was going to make a bet, I'd probably still bet on Gonzaga. But that's just me being overly realistic. I think it's a possibility, though, and
smart. It's just you being a little bit smart.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Gonzaga probably has a pretty good chance of winning it. I think that I'm trying to put numbers to this, but Gonzaga's they're very deep still, even with Wiltjer out. I mean, they still have Pangos. They still have Gary Bell Jr., who's been playing there for 18 years. He just has he's just got basketball. He wants to be playing there forever. So I think that they'll probably. I think BYU and Gonzaga will probably bounce back from not great performances tonight. Play better in the semifinal game. I'm hoping for a really good game in the final there, but I don't know that Tyler Haws is going to have a great chance of getting some hardware here in the conference tournament. That's just me being realistic. I'm obviously hopeful, and I think it can happen. I would probably put it at a 30% chance of happening, though.
All right, so that's it. So we're hoping for Tyler Haws that he can get his first trophy of his career. It's the only thing that's really missing from his time here at BYU. But that'll do it for our three-man weave tonight. We hope you all have appreciated this, and if you've enjoyed it, tweet at us. Let us know if you want us to do more of them. I had a blast doing it tonight, so if this is something you guys want, share it on Twitter. Thanks for those who sent in their Twitter questions. And anything else? Final thoughts from you guys?
If you missed any part of the show, you can watch the whole thing, or even if you watched the whole thing already, you can watch it again at vanquishthefoe.com. It's up there on the front page. And please feel free to leave comments. Tell us on Twitter what you liked, what you didn't like, what really offensive things Jake said that will now cause you to try and get us fired. All those things are good. We'd like to hear those.
Yeah. Any comments whatsoever, and particularly if you have an opportunity to go back to the 37-minute, 15-second mark and listen to our conversation about the greatest Nelly song ever, you will not be disappointed. Most important part of the podcast, bar none.
Okay, well, read our stuff on vanquishthefoe.com, and for Jake Welch and Steve Purse, I'm Keith Shirts, and thank you for watching it. And as you watch it again, memorize the lines. Say them with us.
See you later, guys.